Hello and welcome to Seducing Aliveness. I am Jen Halterman, and it is very much my pleasure to introduce you to my co-host, superstar, Tamara Younker. Hi, Tamara.
Good morning. I'm here. We're here. It's the debut. The time has come. Woohoo!
And I just want to say the way the morning has gone thus far, we're just going to screw this one up really good so we can get it over with. How's that?
Right. Well, that sounds good to me.
Why not? I wonder what a mess we can make this show. So welcome to Seducing Aliveness. If you are unfamiliar with how Blog Talk Radio works, if you go to the listen live of the actual show, there is a chat room. If you just scroll down on the page, there's a live chat room, and you can join in there as long as you log on. You can into an account on Blog Talk Radio, and it's free. You can interact there in the chat room. If you don't log on, you can just see the chaos that we type in there as the show goes. So there is a chat room open now. We'll see what happens, because I feel like I've been herding, snakes all morning. Like, here, okay, over here. Okay, let's do this. Okay, let's do this.
Wait, is herding snakes easier or harder than herding kittens? That's what I want to know.
Well, snakes are a little sneakier, and that's what I've been experiencing, just my experience.
Sneakier?
Yes. So here we are. How are you today? I just want to say I'm glad labor is over.
Yeah, I am too. Got to say, birthing is good. It's here. We can now allow this energy to expand out into the world and touch whoever it's going to touch, and that feels good.
It feels like a great relief, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get down to the number one question I have been asked over and over and over, and that is, what exactly is seducing aliveness? Let's cover that within the first few minutes so people have some idea. What is that exactly? I don't know that I have one definition. Do you?
No. I don't think there is an answer to that, right? I think this is part of the show is going to be an exploration into that. But I'll certainly say that, when you first said the title of the show, Seducing Aliveness, to me, I just, my jaw dropped open and I kind of just went, ooh, like I could perceive the energy of that. And I was like, that's yummy, like, ooh. And so it's been really interesting because that was almost like the introduction point for me. So then it's like, seducing aliveness. Ooh, what is that? So then you get really curious, right? And you start, being in the energy of that. And what is my relationship to that? And what do I know about that? And needless to say, it's been quite, I don't remember the exact day that happened, but it has been quite an interesting journey from that day till now. Seducing aliveness is really showing me, like I guess I would say I've become acutely aware over the last few weeks of like what does aliveness mean to me? The freedom, the choice, the space of ease, and I mean we could just probably talk about this on and on and on. But how do I navigate that? When do I know when I'm in it? When am I not in it? When is there an in it or a not in it? It's this very curious thing that I have been playing with.
Yeah. And so since I brought the name to you, I brought the title, and to me, it's just a way of being. It's like not a doing, but it does you. It's a reverse doing.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that. It's not something you do. It does you. And so for me, aliveness is something I've referenced, a word I've used a lot that speaks to more than just being alive or not dead. And to be in the space of aliveness is it incorporates and includes every single aspect of my essence, my soul, my humanity, my awareness, my gifts and abilities, my, stumbles and flaws and screwed up aspects and all those things. It includes all of it vividly. It's not muted. It's not dull. It's very active, energetically, vividly, and it seems to grow on itself. It's exponential in expansion.
Yeah.
So
I love what you just said, the vividness.
Go ahead.
Oh, just the vividness.
Say that again?
As soon as you said that, when you said the vividness of it, it's vivid. It includes everything, and it's very vivid. I was like, oh, yeah, that's definitely what I experience, and it's really allowing everything to be alive rather than having this sort of separating out. No, not that. Oh, yes, this is okay, but not that. It's like really inclusive of everything. It is very vivid, and to the degree that you are in that space of allowing, it does. It's almost like when you shine a light on something and it starts to glow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It starts to glow. It's like the black light turning on, and you see everything that was unseen.
Yes.
But this is what is seen and unseen. And so to me, what I was noticing was aliveness is seducing. When I'm in my aliveness, it is as if I am seducing everything in life for more of everything. It's like when somebody is really shiny, when they're a celebrity, they're in their genius, they're turned on, they're falling in love, all those things that make us so vibrant and attractive. It's an automatic. When you're in your aliveness, everything and everybody starts being drawn to you. So that's one aspect that I go, yeah, that is something I've experienced. And that is something that I've absolutely noticed in others. When I'm drawn to them, it's usually I'm drawn to their aliveness. Sometimes I'm not even interested in the person, but their aliveness is sexy, And I'm like, right. I just want to be near that.
Yeah. The energy is magnetic, and it's almost irresistible. Like you're saying, it's just like I could be sitting in a restaurant and not, having a conversation with a friend or something, and somebody might come in the door that's even behind me. They're like over behind me or whatever, and suddenly my head whips around. I'm like, what is that? It's like I'm just attracted to that energy, and then I see somebody walk through the door, or this happens to me all the time. I'll be driving my car, and I live in an area where there's a lot of wildlife. So I'll be driving in my car, and, you're kind of generally looking at the road in front of you, and all of a sudden my head will whip over to, one side of the car and look directly at an animal. It'll be a bobcat, it'll be a deer, it'll be an elk, it'll be something that is, and it's almost like you're attuned to that. We can be. I mean, I don't know that, is this a practice? Is this something we have to turn on? But we can be really attuned to that aliveness such that it's like you're just constantly aware of it in your environment.
Absolutely. And it's so seductive. And and here's one of my favorite things is some people are like, seduction is, seducing aliveness. Does that mean this is a sex show? And I'm like, newsflash, seduction is not only about sex.
And it's funny because did it even start out as about sex, or did it become something that, people started using to refer to only as sex? I think that's interesting to consider. Like, what do we do where, like, we often will use things for our own purposes rather than what is it really? What is it really? What do you know about the energy of seduction?
Right. Absolutely, because seduction is just the invitation. It's just a drawing towards something else. That's all it is. And so when it comes down to it, if I had to, and this is going to change. So in this literally not even 10 seconds, seducing aliveness is being led away from death. That's all. Death, whether it's figurative, literal, death of emotion, death of the soul, death of, my physical body, death of all of that. That's the invitation that seducing aliveness is to me. Is it time for something to die? Because there's a difference in dying with vibrancy and doing it directly, or just letting something wither away because of neglect. There's a very big difference in that.
Yep, for sure. I was actually thinking about that before the show. When do we know when to let something die in its vibrancy, as opposed to like, holding on to it until it's, like it's no longer even workable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so interesting. I want to interject here. Happy Launch Day, and everything we can screw up is part of this invitation. And so I just got notice that chat, they're having a struggle with the chat not working.
Oh, big surprise.
Bummer. So to our producers who are helping us, take good notes because it can't go in the chat room.
Yeah.
What are you going to do, right?
That would explain why I can't even get on the page. It was like,
it's
just
radio
not page isn't even really working. So what else is possible?
Isn't that fun? All right, so, oh my gosh. But anyway, hang with us, and luckily we have, phone numbers, and you can call in. If you lose your web connection, you can call in, listen on the phone lines. We won't be taking callers today, but you can listen there anyway, and you won't be bugged, so it'll be all right if you go listen there. But that guest call-in number, go ahead, program this into your phone so you have it, and you can listen anytime you're out and about, and we are live, and that number is 657-383-0531, and that will be the guest call-in number for the show, so you can always have that. Isn't that handy? So as you go about, how do you interact with the show, I just want to let people know, sorry, if the chat comes up, we'll let you know, but it doesn't seem to want to cooperate today, so you just get to listen to us. Which seems to be okay, right, Tamara?
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I do love the interaction of having people in the chat room. That is really fun. So if you're listening, come back and play with us again when the chat room, if it doesn't come up during this show, please do, because it's really fun when we can have your input and your questions and interact in that way. I like it.
I love it. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Okay, so... Okay, I have the page open now for the chat room. Maybe, I don't know if it'll let you join or whatever, but we'll see. It actually opened for me, so hang with us. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so back to the topic. All right, seducing aliveness. It does you. Now, let's talk about this aspect, because being a former control freak of magnitude, to consider being done by anything. Yeah, of course, that's why we're co-hosts, right?
Yeah.
That triggers a lot of things that you and I call yeah-buts.
Yeah.
When you consider seducing aliveness is going to do you, there's some yeah-buts that come up with that. Especially if you have that instinct to resist, that refusal to resist and release the control. So are there any yeah-buts that you and I can think of that we can give people that they can't, well, maybe they can now, but be putting in the chat room so that we can go ahead and get it out of their head and move on with the topic? Because there's a little resistance to, well, I don't want something to do me. I want to be at choice. There's a yeah-but. I want to be at choice.
Well, and that's an interesting conclusion, that when seducing aliveness does you, that your choice is therefore eliminated.
Right.
Aren't we cute that way?
Yeah. We are cute that way. So what would you say to somebody who says that?
But I was just going to say, that's what a control freak thinks, though, is that, like, I have to control everything. So the idea of surrendering, the idea of allowing something to live through me is kind of like, oh, no, that won't work, because the yeah-buts are, then how do I know I'm ever going to get what I want? How do I know this is going to work out? Where's my certainty? Where's my safety? Where's my security? That's what as a control freak of magnitude recovering, that would have been where I was coming from, because I was always trying to create toward a particular conclusion, outcome. What did I call it? It doesn't matter. Outcome attachment disorder. There we go. So
outcome attachment disorder.
Yeah,
that's great.
because I made everything about the outcome. Everything was about the result. It was always about the outcome and the result. And so my life was gauged on whether, is the outcome, how probable is the outcome? Is it going to happen? And so when it happened, then things were good. If it didn't happen, things were bad. If things went awry, it was kind of like, I'll be happy when, and, or things will be good when. So your life is always on hold, waiting to see if the outcome is going to turn out the way you want it to. And that's kind of what I called outcome attachment disorder, because my whole well-being was sort of dependent upon the outcome. And so I was always trying to control everything toward that outcome. And not only was it exhausting, but it having your well-being, your happiness, your joy being dependent on anything kind of sucks. At least that's what I learned. And so
kind of sucks.
I really kind of sucks. And it's funny because, if somebody had said to me at that time, and I'm thinking back like 20 years ago at this point, if somebody had said to me, yes, what about the possibility of having, life live through you? What about having the possibility of life seducing you into something that perhaps you can't even imagine? And I would be like, what you talking about, Willis? Like, what? That makes no sense to me. I have to make this happen. I have to make this happen the way I want it to.
I love that. Yes, exactly. And that's the thing, is it has to go the way I demand or I expect. I'm going to, attract it, and I'm going to expect it. And therefore, what I think is really key there is, if it doesn't come in that form, I don't even recognize it.
Yeah. That was before I knew anything about, following energy, creating from energy. I had no clue. Yeah, it could have come up and smacked me in the forehead, and I would be like, what's that? Get out of my way. So,
yeah.
That's really the difference, is playing in the realm of energy, recognizing, I guess, that the realm of energy is what precipitates everything in the physical. So if I'm working so hard to create some sort of result, some sort of outcome that I've decided, my well-being is dependent on, I might miss. If you want to talk about being the energy of aliveness, how much am I missing out on? How much I've got blinders to, I'm not paying attention to, it's not, oh no, that's not it. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. That's not it. Even though it could be exactly the energy of what I am choosing to create, but I'm not recognizing it in the form. And if I've made the form more important than the energy, to me, I'm missing out on a lot of aliveness.
It is so true. And that is what's seducing about it. To me, I love being seduced by something that is so alive that it's almost like when my aliveness connects with the aliveness of something or someone else, the energy exponentializes. It doesn't necessarily copy or mimic, or you don't become the copy of it. Instead, it ignites my own variety of that. I know that when I laugh, the whole room doesn't laugh my laugh. They laugh their own. And it brings together kind of that symphony of all laughter. Well, that's what aliveness is. That's the invitation into everyone being their own aliveness. I look at right now, and I live in Texas, and so right now it is wildflower season. And as I look at the fields of wildflowers, I think to myself, there is a ton of bluebonnets. There's a ton of Indian paintbrush. There's a ton of buttercups. There's a ton of all different varieties. However, every single one of those flowers is unique. but they become part of the carpet bouquet that blankets this region of the globe at this time of year. And it's beautiful, all of it, and individually.
Mm. It makes me think of the way I've described. I've always thought of the expression of people as like a tapestry, right? And everybody is required to show up and be included in this tapestry in order for the brilliance of the tapestry to be revealed. So if there's people who are like, nah, I'm not going to, I don't want to, I'm hiding over here, or I don't really want to be that energy, or it's too scary to be potent and brilliant, like shine, then the tapestry is full of holes. There's like all these holes where your brilliance and who your magnificence and who you truly are is being called to this, to participate inclusively. Like all of us are required to create the beauty of what's possible. And so, that's the way I've always thought about people is it's, this is better if we do it together.
Right? Hello. This is better if we do it together. Just saying. I love that.
And it's funny how people, diminish themselves, and it's like, oh, I'm not all that. I'm not, or what do you need me for? I'm not really anything to speak of. Or I'm just going to go through life, and I'm just going to hope for the best, and I'm just going to, this is probably as good as it gets. And really, we all are invited, seduced, perhaps, being invited by life every day to come play, to come dance, to come be part of this, this tapestry of life. But we have to say yes to it. We have to be willing. And I think that's the part that, number one, what does that even mean? Which is why we're talking about this. What does that even mean? How will I know? What's the point? And then why it's almost like you need to convince me that what's in it for me? What am I going to, if I say yes to Seducing Aliveness, what am I going to get out of it? Why would I say yes to that? It's really interesting because, and I'm thinking back to myself again, 20 years ago, if I listened to this show or had this conversation with somebody, I probably that's exactly what my yeah but would have been. Well, yeah, but what's in it for me? Because I didn't know.
Yeah, but
I didn't know. I wouldn't have known except I had an experience on a mountaintop. I lived at Tahoe for almost 15 years, and I spent a lot of time in nature. And little did I know at that time that aliveness was seducing me. I didn't know. I would just go hiking because I loved hiking, and I loved this particular mountain lake that I would go to quite frequently. I think almost always alone. And I would just lay on this big rock next to the lake and listen to the wind and the trees and the birds. And, it's quiet, and yet it's not, because the forest is full of sound, the water lapping up against the rock. And I would do this for hours, maybe take a nap, whatever. And I remember specifically, I was laying sort of like spread eagle. I had my arms out, had my legs out on this rock. And as the day passed, it's getting, the sun's getting lower in the sky. And I was like, it's probably time to, this is probably six miles or so up into the wilderness, probably time to start heading back. And I sat up, and it was that, I recognized the scenery. It's all the same. I'm like, I've been here many, many times before, and yet everything was different. That vividness that you were talking about, I just sat there, and it was almost like you're rubbing your eyes, you're blinking your eyes, you're like, wait, what happened? What is this? And I felt so full of something that I had never felt before. It was, I don't even know how to describe it. I've tried many times over the last 18 years. But it was just something that was, almost like from the, if you can imagine a welling up from the inside, an infinite wellspring of something so delicious coming up from the inside of you, and then feeling like it's being matched in all that you see. And I would say that day where I laid on that rock, I opened myself up and I allowed myself to be penetrated by life by accident. Like, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, because it did you.
It did me. That's the thing. It's like, we're so busy in our daily lives being so, well, I'll speak for myself. I lived in a fortress of protection. And there's many things that created that protection, many, many, many things. But up in that space of nature on my favorite, by my favorite lake, I probably relaxed and let it all go and opened myself up to receive. And boom, I got seduced. I got done. I got penetrated by life, and a seed was planted. And I sat on that rock just weeping for this. I was like, what is happening to me? What is this? Like, it's almost like you're dreaming. And after a while, I went back down, and I couldn't wait. At that time, I had a spiritual teacher, and I couldn't wait to go to him and be like, what happened? What was that? Blah, 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 blah. And, so that's I would say, was my first introduction, my first taste of what that is in my life. And it was kind of like it happened by quote unquote accident the first time, and then ever since it was like, all right, what is that? I got to find my way back to that. Kind of like Percival.
Well, and isn't that the magic? To me, it's and when I say magic, it's whatever is undescribed. I don't, people have words for that. I just happen to refer to it as magic. And I think that each of us, we can have one moment like that or a bazillion like that.
Yeah.
But the key is that I hear from everybody that experiences that is they weren't trying. They were actually the opposite. They were untrying. They were letting go. They were laying on a rock. They were standing at the ocean. They were driving down an open highway. They were taking a bird, a picture of a bird. They were, in meditation or whatever. They were untrying, undoing themselves.
Yeah.
And that barrier, I love that fortress of protection just lowered instinctively. And that communion with the oneness, universe, God, whatever word you want to use for that communion happened that sparks that aliveness within us. And boy, when that happens, there is nothing like that, but I know you are never, ever, ever the same. Ever.
No.
You can dial everything back down and go numb if you want, but it's a different numb because the awareness of what you know cannot be unknown.
Exactly. And it takes a lot of energy. This is the part that I think is hilarious now. It takes enormous amounts of energy to live in that fortress of protection and always, keeping everything out. So it's in that moment of relaxation almost. It's like where you're like, it's like, how if you're holding a book while you're laying in bed and you're reading the book and then you fall asleep and then the book just falls to the bed because your arms can no longer hold it up. It's almost like that. I'm sitting here working so hard to keep everything that I think is going to be painful, harmful, scary, fear, everything I'm afraid. Like I'm working so hard to enforce this shield to keep everything out, everything out, and that's what control freaks do is they control everything, right? So that's what I was doing, control, and then I get up there on that rock and just get so completely relaxed, and the fortress comes down, the shield comes down, and boom. I actually allow it. The trick is then, well, I don't know if it's trick, but then the desire was, I want my life to be like that 24/7. What's it going to take? What's required? How do I do that? And that's what sparked the journey for me to discover what living like that 24/7 would be, because it can be 24/7. It can be, and it's amazing to me what I have chosen different in the last 18 years to be able to live that more every day, every moment. And I think that's going to be what's fun about this show is revealing and exploring and sharing all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting as you were speaking, which, by the way, we do have people in the chat room. Charlene has been able to get in. There's a guest there that has not logged in, but hi, guest. So there is some chat room action going on, but it took perseverance, she said, to get in here. So anyway, and so as I was listening to you, and I was, in my mind, I was like, what was that like for me? And I remember when it happened for me, that moment, that spark of aliveness, it became like chasing an orgasm. That felt so good, I want it again. But I thought it was a moment. Yeah, I thought it was a moment. I thought it was just a thing. And it wasn't until I realized, and it took a lot of trying to do aliveness to realize that I couldn't do it. Aliveness would not be done. It would have no part of that. And I started surrendering, letting go, letting down the barriers and the boundaries and the have-tos and the shoulds. And the more that let down, the more that it was happening, that I realized, oh, this is not just a moment thing. This can be actually sustainable, self-sustainable. The more I nurtured my aliveness, the more that aliveness was doing my life, and it grew and exponentially just kind of overlapped. And that welling up you were talking about, it's like, when my aliveness is dull, I'm like a dry fountain. And if somebody comes to me and says, I need some moisture, I got nothing to give. But if I keep that aliveness fed and nurtured and vibrant within me, through which is all stuff we'll talk about on the show during this week, then what happens is I am a spring, and the fountain springs forth through me. And when somebody comes by and accidentally gets splashed, they didn't take anything from me. It's just the overflow. If somebody says, I would like a cup of water from the fountain, it's like, well, then put your cup out. I don't have to actually give it to you. Just receive it. And that to me is not momentary doing aliveness. That is living aliveness. That is being aliveness. That is being the vessel of aliveness my way. And everybody's way is different.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I as you were saying, I'm like, yep. That's exactly what I perceive as well, is that it's almost like, once somebody is living that energy, it's available for anybody to, and it can come to you in any way, right? Like mine was in the forest, the first experience or whatever. And then I began to cultivate that. And as we were just saying a little earlier, you can be attracted to somebody who's being that energy, and it's almost like you can't help yourself. You're like, what is it about you? What is it? That can be transmitted. That's the word I was looking for. Transmitted. It's like a transmission that is very natural. Because here's the thing: it's natural to be this energy. It's not normal in the world around us, because most people are just not dead yet, but it's natural. So it's the yes is the easiest thing you've never chosen or never done in a sense. Like that day on that mountaintop, because I was using so much energy to say no. All of that control, but it's the most natural space and energy to be if we're just willing to say yes. And that idea of surrender is surrender is an interesting word we could talk about, but it's so terrifying and threatening for most people. It took me years to be willing to let go of that control enough to receive the aliveness that is natural to my very being. That's practice.
Oh, yeah.
Like literal practice. Like, okay, I'm choosing this. Like, this is something, again, I'm saying, but what's in it for me? Well, it's something you have to innately desire. And I've talked about this before many times on, other radio shows and classes with clients, is that nothing really changes until you get to that point in your life when you're like, I really want to have a different experience than the one I'm having. And the interesting thing is, right before I had that experience in the mountains, that was the summertime, I had made a massive life transition. I had quit a job. I had ended a relationship. I had stopped. I'd been a blackout drinker for 20 years before that. I'd stopped drinking. I got to that point where I was like, okay, all of this, everything in entirety has to go. Now, nobody has to choose that kind of blank slate thing, but I just realized that everything in my life I had experienced up to now, I was like, this is all a big no. Like, there's got to be something else. I don't know what it is. It was all I had ever known. And I just was like, there's got to be something else. This is not working in any way. And probably, and what did I even mean by that when I said this isn't working anyway? You know, it's not a cognitive thing. In a sense, it's just like it comes from a place within us. It's like there's got to be more. And I could now speak about it as more aliveness. I wouldn't have used that terminology then, but there was something missing, something fundamental missing from my experience that I was like, I will go on an eternal quest to discover what that fundamental thing that is missing. And what I would say now is it was the aliveness that was missing, because I was living so shut down and so closed off and so much unhappiness and so forth. So I totally lost my train of thought. Alrighty, then.
It's fine. We're just chasing fireflies through the yard. It's fine. It's not a train. It's not connected.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and I get that.
So
because,
I remember now. It was the what's in it
okay,
for
good.
me, and I had to say, because that experience, I would say, was gifted to me in a sense. It was grace of life gifted that to me. I allowed myself to be penetrated by life. It was gifted to me, and then I had to choose it. I had to say, I could have just ignored that, like you said. Although I think it would have been really difficult to, once you know something, you can't unknow it. But I was like, oh yeah, more of that, more of that, more of that. So I had to make the choice and implement the practice and be willing to be in the curiosity and the discovery of what was exactly going to create more of that in my life. And then choose it every day, or not, or.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that for me, as you were talking, I was like, yeah, I remember thinking it was little moments, but instead, sometimes I would get a hint. You know how you have a scent and you say it's grapefruit and you love grapefruit, and every time that you go through the world and grapefruit, the aroma, the essence of grapefruit comes to you, you recognize it and go, oh, that's grapefruit. And as you get more and more accustomed to the grapefruit, you start to notice the changes in the grapefruit. And you start to notice that when grapefruit is mixed with lemon and lime, you can still tell that grapefruit is part of that mix. It's in there. And that's a seducing, is like, oh, wait, this wine has a little grapefruit. This lotion has a little grapefruit, but it's not called grapefruit. But there's something in it that I love. And so to me, that's what the world or universe does, is it starts saying, you really love that, and I gave it to you so potently that you could not deny it. You couldn't unknow it. But I'm going to start to drop breadcrumbs so that you have just the hint to continue on the path that's going to lead you to what it is you're actually asking for that you don't even know what that is yet.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the seduction, is it's just a slight little, come here. Just a little bit further. Come on. Keep coming. Don't stop. Don't give up. And it's up to us to say yes. We can say no at any time. It's up to us to take that step, lean in, whatever that looks like for us, to say, oh, yeah, oh, wait, I don't know what that was, but I want more of that. And I don't want it just to be a moment. I actually want to infuse everything in my world with more of that. And that's a choice. That is an actual choice that we can make.
Yeah. And it comes, the only place that can come from is in an inherent desire, right? Like somebody could have probably told me about it before that, and I would have dismissed it. I wonder, this is curiosity in this moment, I'm just wondering, if I hadn't prior to that made that sweeping change in my life where I was like, okay, everything, this has all got to go, I want to discover what else is possible, if I hadn't had that moment, or I haven't had that made that decision, made that choice in my life, would I even have been open to what occurred to me on that mountaintop that day? I think no, because prior to that, I think my energy was so closed off and in such refusal that I wasn't asking for anything yet. I was just going along with the circus, the way the circus was at the time. I wasn't asking for anything. I didn't even probably know there was anything to ask for. So it's interesting when you live so closed off from life. It's how do you even know? And I think the breadcrumbs analogy is beautiful, because if it was given to me all at once, I don't know that I could have handled it.
Yeah, it would have been the fire hose effect, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. The fire hose effect. So giving me that gift, and then it's almost like, well, is this going to ignite something or not? Because life doesn't have a point of view whether I choose to ignite or not. You know, I have to choose that. I have to make that choice. It has to. That's what I'm trying to say in my long-winded way. Is it has to come from us. We can. You know, life is seducing us all the time, because I would say that is our natural space of being. But we are the ones, like you just said, we have to say yes to it. We have to be willing to go on the adventure of living. And
yes,
that willingness for me has changed over time. In the very beginning, I was like, I was only going to take like little dropperfuls. It was sort of like feeding a baby bird with a little dropper. You know, it was like I was like, okay, I'll take a little dropperful in the beginning. Because number one, I didn't really trust it. I was like, I don't know, is this even real? Is this my imagination? What is this stuff? Like, I don't know. Can this really be trusted? Because you've gathered evidence your whole life for the reality that you're living. Suddenly something comes along that is you have zero reference points for this. It's so vastly different than the life and the experiences you've been having. You're like, is that even real? Did I make it up? So I was willing to have dropperfuls, little bits. And then as time passed, and I was like, well, it seems to be something that, you know, isn't really going away. I can actually open myself up to it almost at will. And I started, while I was living in Tahoe, I started engaging in a dance almost. It was kind of like, okay, I'll open up more. I'll let you be my teacher. But it was a very private experience. I didn't tell anybody about it, really. It was kind of like just for me, just for fun, because I didn't trust it fully yet. It took a long time for me to trust this, and just in my own private experience before I was even willing to talk about it with other people, share it with other people. It was kind of like, this is a secret just for me, my secret life of aliveness that I'm not sharing with anybody. Which seems so cute now as I'm talking about it. It's so cute that I did that, but that's where I was at that time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this conversation so much. I have tears of happiness because what I'm sitting here in so much appreciation is my upbringing was that any experience like that came through a certain approved religion-based power that I couldn't actually have it myself. So when I had it myself, and it wasn't in a certain building with a name on it, or, you know, with a prayer that was said by somebody else besides me who had more power and authority than me, or whatever other, you know, system that wasn't working for me, that when I had an experience of my own, that when I saw what I had never seen before with my eyes, that when I felt what I never felt before, that was me, and that was not, I didn't have to give the credit to anybody. I didn't have to give the power. I didn't have to acknowledge anybody else. That's where my trust was. I needed to trust that actually that was my aliveness. That wasn't because I was worthy. It wasn't because somebody deemed me, appropriate and had judged me to make sure that I was, again, worthy of that thing. That's where I got to trust of, wow, this has nothing to do with the religion of my upbringing. This has nothing to do with an outside authority. This is literally me. And you're right, just for me and not for anyone else, because I had already been brought up in a dynamic where it would have been judged.
Mm-hmm.
And so my own experience is this space of like, do I trust this enough? And I can remember actually disconnecting from a lot of people and not communicating about religion or non-religion for about 6 months, because I wanted to be sure that I myself was out of the habit of giving all of the acknowledgement to outside sources. So that when I reconnected, I didn't fall back into old habits and ruts of, oh yeah, all glory be to God, okay, oh yeah, instead to go, well, this is how I see it. This is my experience. This is just simply my experience, and I'm okay if nobody believes me.
Yeah.
That took me actually getting into my own experience and not having it compared or judged or validated by outside sources, to where I could stand in the presence of people that would eventually say, that's not possible because you're not, you don't have whatever ordination or this title or that doesn't happen because you're not special enough. And when that did come about, I just remember smiling and being like, that's okay. That's what you believe. And I knew that's what you believe. I don't expect you to believe anything different. But it didn't change my experience.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving this conversation because it's taking me back to reflect on that. I haven't really had a conversation of this type with anyone that we're talking about now, where I'm reflecting on how I sort of allowed this to, my relationship with this over time, right? So here I am living in Tahoe. I've discovered this thing. I'm actually now cultivating it in a way. I discovered that I didn't have to be on that mountaintop. I could be in my own backyard. I lived in a cabin in the woods, so that was easy. I was really still in the mountains. I was still in the wilderness. But I didn't allow it to bleed into the rest of my life. So this is the interesting part. I still played control freak of magnitude in every arena of my life, but then I had this fun thing, this game that I played, where I was really allowing life to seduce me, but in private, in secret, and it was just for me. And then it was like, it was almost like taking a toy out and playing with it, and then when you're done playing with it, you put it back in the drawer and shut the drawer, and it never was allowed to. I never allowed it to penetrate into the rest of my life. I was like, oh, sure, I can have this in my space of private time, but whether it was relationships or work or everything else, was like, nope, that's separate. That's this, that's that. Because I really didn't know what it was, or even, still back to what's the benefit of it? Like, what's in it for me? Like, what if I let this bleed into the rest of my life, what's it going to do? And frankly, I was a little bit afraid that it would disrupt everything. Because it does.
Don't want to change too much.
Yeah, and I posted this on Facebook. This is something that I said recently, and I was like, ooh, sometimes stuff falls out of your mouth, and you're like, ooh, that's good. I think I'll share it. And the act of creating what you desire will change you. The question is, will you allow yourself to experience the discomfort along the way and stay the course, or will you turn back toward the familiar safety of things as they've always been? Will you be unrelenting in the pursuit of what you desire, even if you become unrecognizable to yourself in the process? And at that time that I'm speaking of now, the answer was no.
Oh, my gosh.
I was not willing to allow that to disrupt my life as I knew it. The control freak was still dominant.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, because that's so key, which is why so many people, I think, if they don't get it immediately, they judge they're doing it wrong. But when you have a habit of survival called control, 1% change is amazing. But if you're expecting and you're not going to be satisfied without 100% change, that 1%, I mean, that's a rough tear, you know, to allow it to come in easily, gently, one moment at a time, one, you know, restructuring of neural pathways and habits of behavior and change of speech, one little teeny bit at a time is how we gently expand instead of having to shred ourselves, our lives, and become different. Some of us require that, some don't. Some choose it, some don't. But I like ease. I like gentleness personally, you know. And so my invitation is this. And Tamara, we've got some comments coming in that I'm like, I want to share these. So we've got in the chat room, choosing to keep the light lit continually is one way this is being reflected. Just an amazing acknowledgement of, I feel like I'm listening to my own story here, different circumstances with similar experiences. Another one is, this is what's cute. This is over on Facebook. I think I'm the, quote, guest. I'm somehow here and I'm hearing. I don't see any chat room or anything, though. I'm not even sure how I'm hearing, but I'm hearing. Isn't that great? Like, we don't know how we're listening to the show, but we know we're here. And so this is after a little bit of share this. Surrender means to give back, not give up. Give back the fight and pain. And loving y'all's aliveness and seduction. So thank you to chat room and Facebook and all of that. There's so much to this, and some people come in through Facebook Messenger, and I'm trying to keep up because there's a lot of y'all. So thank you for being here and for your comments, because it's not frantic. The excitable energy that I'm perceiving in these messages that are coming in is exactly what's contagious. It's what's contagious. It's what's seducing. It's the invitation. It's the ripples that go out and keep going. And as we each talk about our own experiences, our own differences in our relationship with seducing aliveness, part of the invitation is to allow yourself to be the individual that you be. Every single one of you and myself and Tamara, we have so many things that are similar, and then we have such contrast between us, which is part of why we chose to say yes to come together for this show.
Yeah.
And I love that piece that you read, where you shared about that you would become unrecognizable.
I have now.
Are you
I am
willing?
Now. I mean, you know, like this is just beginning the journey, right? Of just what I've shared. It's just the beginning inkling of the journey, and I'm sure I'll continue to share that journey over the course of the show. But this all started 18 years ago, and you know, so I am unrecognizable today to who I was at that time. I still have a lot of the same preferences, you know, and things like that. But in terms of energetically, I'm energetically unrecognizable to who I was then. How I engage with life is unrecognizable. The control freak of magnitude has given sway. Surrender is much more appealing to me than control. The things that I desire have changed. I mean, unrecognizable in so many ways. And that didn't happen all at once. It happened choice by choice by choice by choice, by being willing to be done. As we said, seducing aliveness is not something you do, it does you. Be willing to be done, to say yes over and over and over again along the way. And you know what? A detour is perfectly fine. So if you get up to something that feels like a big leap into a space of the unknown, and you're saying, you know, like, I'm not quite sure I'm ready to say yes to that yet. You know, like that's totally okay. You're actually completely in charge, which to me is very different from control. That's another topic, perhaps. But you're completely in charge of your yes into this space. And there is no, you can't fuck this up. This is unfuck-upable. So your pace is fine. And as you were just saying a few minutes ago, like everybody's pace is going to be different. It's just a matter of am I enjoying the seduction that I'm being invited to, that I'm opening to, and do I want to say yes to more of that? And how much do I want to say yes to that? You get to be in charge. This is your life, your adventure of living.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, my goodness. Okay. I love this. I absolutely adore you, Tamara, and we have 4.5 minutes.
As we suspected, so fast.
Yes, so fast. So I want the listeners to know what we've got coming up for you this week. We are going to talk about aliveness being more than just not being dead. Not dead yet, you know?
Yeah.
And we're also going to go into the care and feeding of our aliveness and what that looks like individually. And we are fully aware that for many of you, this is an introduction of who, I am as Jen Halterman, Tamara Younker, who we are. Some of you are familiar with one or both, and some you're brand new. And I just want to invite you to connect with us each and together. Over on Facebook, you can find us. Seducing Aliveness has its own page. We each have our own pages. Tamara's is tamara.younker, and then I have Jen Halterman now on Facebook, and you can follow us and find us there. But the conversation for this show, all about curiosity and not conclusion. It's all about the contrast. Instead of going into comparing and competition about what is aliveness, leaving it undefined, because until you're in your own aliveness, it is not defined as of yet. It's being in it that gives it form and structure through your living of it. And that's the invitation of this show.
And to me, it's never the same for long, we're so used to wanting to define something to have a sense of what it is so we can feel comfortable with it. And it's like, as soon as I get that, now I'm comfortable with it, it's like, it's going to change. It's going to seduce me into more. Which I love.
So
right?
true.
I'm a pioneer. I'm an explorer. If it started just being the same, then I'd be like, wait, isn't this not dead yet?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Oh, my gosh. Do you have any closing thoughts for the listeners? We're
just getting started, right? This is ignition. So if you felt anything inspired to come back for more, we're just getting started. There's a long way to go, and not that there's it's that you've heard that people hear that all the time. It's not the destination; it's about the journey. Well, guess what? It really is. It really is the adventure. So if you'd like to take an adventure of us, and we'd love to have you, come back for more.
Come back for more. And as always, you can call in, listen on the phone lines. So if you are away from your computer, if you're like, I'm driving or whatever, and you just want to call in, program this number into your phone so you can just call in during this hour. I mean, it's a set hour, 8 Mountain, 9 Central, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And that number is 657-383-0531. And just call in and listen there. Hopefully we'll get the chat situation worked out so that you can join us there, because those conversations are fabulous. But the more that we hear from you, the more that we are aware of the energy and where this show is taking us all. And we're open to that. So show us.
Yeah.
And I really hope, drive time listening, and I really hope that the audios cooperate, because apparently we don't have a closing little jingle either. It didn't come through. So Tamara, sing for us. Just kidding.
No, we would. I'll spare everyone that.
Well, okay. I guess we'll wrap up the show by saying thank you so much. We hope you'll join us tomorrow morning, and we will talk to you again then on another episode of Seducing Aliveness. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.